Hello everyone and welcome back to another industry report. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered released last week. We've played it, and you know what? It looks like Activision and the developers of Vicarious Visions have done it. They've actually recaptured the magic of what many people consider to be one of the greatest games ever. The feeling online and in our office is overwhelmingly positive. This game does deserve to be talked about, and it really has made people happy. And you know what? That's pretty damn refreshing to see, especially given the news cycle that is gaming. It's also a redemption for the Tony Hawk franchise after a line of modern cock-ups, and it's another win for Activision in the remasters department, seemingly the only thing that they can pull off in an uncontroversial fashion. Of course, that's Activision Publishing. There are, of course, their sister businesses reforging mishaps, but we'll talk about those another day. And it does make us think about Activision's future and how, perhaps, finding the fun might actually be core to making great games, something that I would say modern, overly systems-driven games certainly do struggle with. Now, as we go into this, I just want to say, we're pushing towards 250k. Your subs really do matter, and since we started mentioning this, boom, they've went up. So, hey, if you want to enjoy more content, hit that sub button. Thanks for your support, and let's get into it. First up, some cultural background in case you weren't there. This is a game that many of us, of course, played as kids. So, the 90s were a tumultuous time for the skateboarding sort of thing as a whole. Basically what happened is, in the late 80s, there was a big boom in popularity, which, amongst other things, brought a young Tony Hawk to prominence. But, as the decade sort of shifted, things were beginning to simmer down. That simmering happened to the late 90s, around when I was born, and that's when a resurgence in extreme sports happened thanks to things like X Games, and because of this, skateboarding edged back into the public eye, and shortly after that happened, along came a pretty magical game, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, a true labor of love between the professional skating community and the then developers Neversoft, and one that a lot of us ended up playing as kids. This game released to little fanfare in 1999, but it definitely captured everything that was wonderful about, like, skating and the subculture surrounding it. It rekindled careers there, and it also inspired countless people to hop on a skateboard for the first time, and in my case, rapidly fall off and never try again. Now, the game's signature blend of authenticity but also accessibility just made it an instant hit, and then what really solidified that is the much-loved sequel, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. That cemented the franchise as a cultural phenomenon, one that is well-loved and well-remembered to this very day. That's the history. What about the now? Well, the difference between the original Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 and the remastered version is that the 2000 release saw the franchise return in triumph after the breakout success of its first game. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 took its spot as one of the best games ever made, pretty much, and it ingrained, well, you know, muscle memory into people and also musical tastes into the mind of its player base. Conversely, though, Tony Hawk Pro Skater Remastered released in a much darker time for the Tony Hawk gaming franchise. It had been going downhill significantly since the days of Ride, but it all but died a death with the abominable Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 in 2015, a title rushed out to fulfill a contractual obligation that led to Tony Hawk himself later stating he was no longer involved with the franchise or with Activision. Yes, it really is quite the turnaround, and it's actually not even the first time that a, well, remaster or re-release of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 has happened. There was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X, which is a 2001 Xbox exclusive re-release of the first two games with a few added extras, and then the Tony Hawk Pro Skater HD collection in 2012, which was serviceable enough, yes, but generally a bit limited content-wise. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered, though, represented a bit of a crossroads and opportunity and danger, because if it succeeds, what does it do? It saves the franchise. If it doesn't succeed, well, it pretty much kills it. And there are many ways that it could have went wrong, you know, over-modernization, right? Emphasizing realism, changing the physics, but Vicarious Visions have basically nailed it. They've produced something extremely special. Not only is it a love letter to fans, but also it's a portal straight back to the 90s and the glory days of the franchise, which is an absolute blast to go through now in 2020. It's impeccably done as a game. The feel is so true to those old games, but it's still brave enough to actually feel new and exciting. Like, it incorporates manuals and reverts from later installments in the game, which is a great idea, and they also added in a suite of new moves that basically are designed to string everything together. So basically, right, they've added in more options for the top-end gameplay and the veterans, but they've retained the traditional accessibility, and that's basically just meant you've got a game that even if you played the old ones to death, you can still go in and enjoy. And if you've heard about them and you want to see what the fuss is, it's still that great accessible game that we all remember from our childhoods. And it genuinely is making people happy. And this is the kind of positivity and just good shit happening that we just need to see more of in gaming these days. It is brilliant. Tony Hawk says that the fans themselves made this game a reality, and that's exactly what it feels like. And at least here in the office, Matt, our producer, well, he picked it up on a nostalgic whim, and he was blown away. And to him, basically, it's a game with the mechanical depth of an incredible action game, and fantastic level design, of course, with each level being a very different opponent to overcome when you're actually going for the high scores. It is an absolute joy to play, so much so that when he went to play it, Matt actually finished both of the skate tours, of both games, in a single sitting. And basically, it's that thing where the evolution of learning how to skate in that game is just a 10 out of 10 video game situation. Now, he's a massive, massive character action game fan, and to him, there was actually moments that he described, basically moments of learning of how to chain combos across a level that to him felt as good as finishing a DMC5 boss with a triple S rank. And if you know what that experience is like to character action game fans, then you'll probably know that that is one of the highest forms of praise someone could give. It's almost what you could call a perfect game, right? It might not be a big blockbuster, but it stays in its genre, it knows what it's doing, and it executes its mission to pretty much perfection. So let's step back a bit and talk about Activision and remasters. Digital Foundry, a bunch that over here we love, they called Tony Hawk Pro Skater Remastered, quote, Activision's best title of the entire console generation and one of the best games ever made. That's high praise, and to be honest, yeah, they might actually be onto something here. Tony Hawk Pro Skater Remastered's success is, I think, born out of a shift in Activision's basically attitude towards remasters. It's been really interesting. They've been a real priority for Activision this last while. In fact, their February annual report, that they released in February, that revealed that they were planning to release several remasters this year. And of course, that's, a situation where previously they've done the likes of Spyro and Crash, which have been extremely successful. And it's wild because with remasters, Activision seem to just give their devs a lot of freedom. They've got the ability to update and modernize classic IPs while still retaining what makes them feel special. And that's why, say, the expanded moveset in Tony Hawk Pro Skater Remastered works so well and actually makes it such that even if you played the original to death, it's still worth trying this one if you really love it that much. It's actually incorporating innovations from later on in the series without overcomplicating and sort of muddying down the core gameplay experience that people loved. And that's so much better than seeing, it's a new Tony Hawk Pro Skater game and now it has realistic physics, which, probably would have messed it up. Now, what's really getting interesting about all of this is the freedom seems to be extending to doing new things with the IP. Like, get this. We're just a few weeks away from an actual numbered Crash Bandicoot sequel. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, who the hell would have seen that coming? And it does make you think, hey, is there going to be a new Spyro soon? And I'll tell you what, I bloody hope so, because Spyro 3 sucked up a lot of time for young me. And I suppose it's that thing where, without wanting to jinx this whole situation, this remaster-focused Activision seems to be just happy to make things for fans that are good. And it's wild we're saying that about Activision, given how they can be sometimes, though, of course, we should not let, I would say, our suspicion for a publisher make us unfairly judge the work of its staff, because I think, as is decently obvious, there's a lot of times where Activision staff, too, are probably pretty damn pissed off at Activision. So, let's talk big picture about the future. What is the overall plan here? What's up? Activision have already shown here they're happy to let devs modernize these remasters and actually do new things with existing IP. But what if Activision were actually developing, say, all new IP with this same sense of creative freedom? I mean, Activision have been around for quite some time, since 1979 to be exact, and in that time they've overseen a huge amount of different IPs and franchises. They've got some of the most talented teams in the whole industry at their disposal, yet recently they've just become so stuck in their ways, right? That, a remaster of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, two of the most popular and successful games, of at least their time, that actually came as a surprise to us. It's wild. Hopefully this, like, new wave of actually just making really good games that seem to be quite well managed actually just extends to, making new games that are not remastered. Now, there was a bit of a weird thing here. There was the offering demos as a pre-order bonus. This is another trend for Activision that we're actually seeing now. And it's a pretty odd one. I mean, of course, using the warehouse level as a demo, like that harken back to the old PS1 demo disc days. Of course, it's that warehouse that really introduced many people to the franchise. So you could see that, but still, a demo as a pre-order bonus doesn't sit right with me. Then you've got the Crash 4 demo. That's a bit stranger because it does seem, like it's not really a decide before you buy demo. Instead, it just looks like it's sort of something to wet your teeth with locked behind a pre-order. A cynic might argue that both the Tony Hawk and Crash demos, are just things that could have been showed at E3 or Gamescom that they're selling to you. Actually, I think the cynics would be right. So that's something I don't really like. But still, the success of Spyro, Crash, and now Tony Hawk sure does show there is a market for nostalgia and a market for simple, clean, good fun. But, actually in the modern day, right? In a time where a lot of those more simplistic but fun experiences have fallen by the wayside. So, with Crash 4 actually on the books, hey, could we see a Tony Hawk 6? Right? Could that actually be a thing? A new Spyro? Maybe will we see a Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 remaster at some stage? Given this success, I would think so. And it's interesting, Activision throwing their weight behind devs like Toys for Bob. I mean, who would have, thought that suddenly Toys for Bob would be making some of the most well-regarded, excellent bits of media going on? And you might just say, all the Toys for Bob did was a remaster, but man, if you look at, say, those Spyro remasters, they evolve the art style. They carry it into the modern era, between animation and actually bringing a lot of those characters to life. There's a lot of creative work there that they did absolutely incredibly. It's really impressive. And it does just speak to an Activision that's got its head screwed on, which again is a weird thing to be saying. And it's something that I would like to actually see them continue with, right? And doubly so, put their massive resources into new games and new IPs that carry this spirit forward. I mean, imagine a future where Activision are focused on fun. I mean, if anything, I suppose we could say that not so long ago, Tony Hawk, Spyro, and Crash were all essentially dead. We now have seen 4 stellar, top-quality games between those 3 franchises. Crash Team Racing, microtransactions sneaking in aside. So with those franchises revealed, what are we going to see next? Will it be a return to classic, fun-focused games that are not layers and layers of stats and systems that are designed to just retain players while you sell them microtransactions? Hopefully, we go in that good direction. And, while it's sometimes easy to criticize remasters, I mean, let's be honest, they're not the most creative, risky thing in the world. Well, when they come together well, they can be pretty special. And perhaps the biggest compliment you can pay to the Tony Hawk remaster is it feels as good now as the original did then, and that really is a feat. It just seems if you let the devs do a good job, then turns out they're professional devs. They'll try to do a good job. And maybe it can be that we just have simple, fun games that actually earn their ticket price by being fun and good, rather than player retention-focused Skinner boxes. Hopefully, that's the case, and that is it for me. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remaster is really, really good, and it's nice to be able to dedicate a video slot on this channel to something that is just good. And with that, I'm going to take my leave. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.